handling overwhelm in a way that will allow you to understand it, explore it, eliminate it, delete it, delegate it, get rid of it, twist it, turn it. This process that you're about to go through, in whatever way you want to use to describe it, will allow you to handle overwhelm. Because of course, overwhelm is created when we feel like the handle that we have on something has been disrupted, right? Hence why things are getting overwhelming, out of hand, right? Is another way of describing overwhelm. Overwhelm essentially is when your brain gets far too full, right? Your brain, your schedule, the things you need to do, the things that you're thinking about, the things you're not thinking about, the places you need to go, the people you need to see, everything becomes overflowed to the point where you are overwhelmed. But overwhelm creates certain things. It creates pressure. It creates uncertainty, again, which is like we were saying before. Humans don't like that. Humans don't like uncertainty. We like certainty. We like to know where we're going. It feels like you can't get anything done when you're experiencing overwhelm. You know, it creates anxiety. It creates worry. It can create you to cause you to freeze. That's another really significant effect of overwhelm, where you know, or you feel like you know, you've got all of this stuff that you need to do. A lot of stuff needs to get done. I need to go here. I need to do that. I need to see that person. And then it feels like the list of things that need to be done is building up and building up and building up. And it's not even just the to-do list that's becoming overwhelming. Your thoughts are becoming overwhelming. Your feelings are becoming overwhelming. It seems as though your relationships are becoming overwhelming. Everything gets to the point where you feel overwhelmed and it's just overflowing and overflowing. And I can imagine that everybody watching this has at least experienced something along those lines at least once or a couple of times in their life. So what I want you to do is we're going to start with the first stage of the 5-stage process, which I call exploration. Okay, exploration. We need to explore why you're feeling this way. Okay, because there's no good trying to think of loads of remedies. It's no good trying to think of or trying to find plasters to stick on that cut. There's no point trying to come up with ways of ignoring this thing or shoving it to the back of your mind or brushing it under the carpet or dealing with it, right? Or even handling it, which is what we want to do today, if we don't understand what it is. So exploration is the first stage of the process. Now, if you're watching this, grab a pen and paper, make notes on your phone, do whatever you need to do to make notes of this 5-stage process, right? Because I'm just going to be delivering it exactly like this, just straight to camera. So exploration is the first stage of the process. What is causing the overwhelm? That's the big question. What is causing the overwhelm? Because we can feel it, and sometimes we feel it and we don't question it. That's a big problem when you don't question it, because then you just live with it, right? And you don't want that to be the case. What is causing the overwhelm? Ask questions like, what are you thinking about? What are you doing? What are you not doing? Who else is involved in this, right? What we want you to do is we want you to write down exactly, first step, right, is to write down how you're feeling. And one of the best ways of understanding how you're feeling is by exploring what is causing that feeling, right? So this is what you want to do, right? Step number 1. Let's break this down into steps because it'll be easier to follow. Step number 1 is write down how you're feeling, right? Let's start with that. Write down how you're feeling. Write down, you don't need to do this right now. Do this after the training, but just write down the steps for now and then go and do it afterwards. Step number 1, write down how you're feeling. Step number 2, what we want you to do in order to really maximize on this exploration stage of the process, brain dump everything that is causing you to feel the way that you're feeling. So step number 1, you write down, this is how I'm feeling, in as much detail as you possibly can. Step number 2, brain dump all of the things that are causing you to feel the way you feel in step number 1. And I'm talking absolutely everything. Brain dump everything. Get it out of your head. Because at the moment, it exists in your head and it's overflowing in this thing. And it's causing overwhelm and anxiety and all these horrible negative emotional states that you don't want. Because all of this stuff at the moment is building up and building up and building up inside your head. So brain dump it all down on paper. Every concern, every worry, everything on your to-do list, everything that's bothering you, every single thing that you can think of that's creating the feeling of overwhelm, that's creating the feeling that you've just described in step number 1. So that's a really good way of exploring what the fuck this thing is, right? Because you feel in this way, you feel it, you don't want to be feeling it, all right? We understand that. You do not want to be feeling this way. You're feeling overwhelmed. It's not serving you. It's not doing you any favors. It's not doing you any justice. It's something you're experiencing that you don't want to be experiencing. Okay, so the first major category in this process is exploration. Write down how you're feeling and write down every single thing that is making you feel the way you're feeling, right? It's a good way of getting it out of your head, looking at it on paper, reread it, add to it, reread it, add to it. It's a very good way of just taking it all out of your head, getting it out of your head, and just get it down on paper so we can start to make a little bit more sense of it, right? Once you've done that, put that to one side. And what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the second category, which is imagination, right? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use our imaginations, right, to stop for a minute. Remove yourself. This is another really important point as well. When you come to do this, right, after this live or whenever you choose to do it, and I highly recommend you do it ASAP, because otherwise it's just going to end up being added to the to-do list of things to do, right? Start with this, right? Don't, please, after watching this training, don't add this to the to-do list and then go and start worrying and feeling overwhelmed about all the other shit that needs to be done. Please do this first, right? If you do this first, everything else will make a lot more sense, right? And the overwhelm will be diminished. So please just do this ASAP. It needs to be the number one priority right now. So when you do this, make sure that you're in a place where you've just got a little bit of alone time, right? And I know that can be difficult with the kids at home, but it doesn't need to take long, right? Go and shut yourself away in the bathroom for 10 minutes and do this. Whatever you need to do to just be able to stop and think and be able to stop, breathe, and focus within yourself, right? And that'll make more sense in this next category. So anyway, exploration, put that to one side. The next category is imagination, right? It's category number 2, imagination. What I want you to do is I want you to stop and I want you to vividly imagine what it is that you want to be feeling. Okay? We know you don't want to feel overwhelmed. We know that. We get that. We know that you don't want to feel worried. You don't want to feel anxious. This is your time to park all of that stuff up for a minute. We're going to revisit it and stop and vividly imagine how you do want to feel, right? Stop and think, how do I want to feel? Ask yourself that question. Write down exactly how you want to feel. Now, remember in step number 1, where we wrote down how we are currently feeling, this is just like that, except you're going to write down how you want to be feeling, okay? No barriers. No blocks, no, yeah, but, yeah, if the kids are at home, yeah, but maybe if this wasn't happening, maybe, none of that shit. Just write down exactly how you want to be feeling. And then what you want to do is you then want to write down all of the things that would create that feeling. So you're very clear on what the feeling is that you want to achieve. You're very, very clear on how you want to feel. And now what you want to do just below that is brain dump again, but this time it's a list of things that will create that feeling. Things that need to be done, places that you would like to go. Of course, that one may be limited in these times, but still get it down, because there will be a lot of answers there. There will be golden nuggets in that. People that you'd like to see, things you'd like to read, things you'd like to listen to, people you'd like to speak to, anything, right? It's completely unique to you. Anything that you know will create the feeling that you've just described that you would like to be feeling. So let's just think about what we've got so far. We've looked at 2 categories and 4 steps, right? Category number 1 is exploration. Step 1 is this is how I'm feeling. Step 2 is this is why I'm feeling that way, because of all of this shit that needs to be done. Right? Then we moved on to category number 2, which is imagination. Step 3 was this is how I want to be feeling. And step 4 was this is what needs to happen in order for me to achieve that feeling. So now what you've got is you've got 2 drastically different pieces of paper, right? You've got the one that describes how overwhelmed you are and why you're overwhelmed. And you've got one that describes how you want to be feeling and all of the things that need to occur in order for you to feel that way. Now, what you want to pay attention to are the differences between those 2 lists, because the differences between those 2 lists are significant. One of them is literally describing what is causing you to feel a way that you don't want to be feeling. And one of them is literally describing what needs to happen in order for you to feel the way you do want to be feeling. Now, of course, there will be some of the things on that list where you've written down the way that you want to feel and what needs to occur in order for you to feel that way. Some of those things may not be possible at the moment. But in the same respect, there are also going to be some things on the overwhelm list that you don't actually have to do, right? So it swings and roundabouts. It will balance itself out by the time we get to the end of this training. But for now, focus on the differences between those 2 lists. Now, have you ever heard that? I don't know what the story is, but I read this online ages ago, and it's actually really significant. There's a story about, I think it's one elder man who's full of wisdom is talking to a younger man who's sort of really torn up inside, and he doesn't know what direction to move in, and he's worried and he's anxious and all of this stuff. And the elder man, who's more full of wisdom and experience, tells him the story of the 2 wolves, right? I'm sure some of you have heard this, but it's really, really good. And he says that everybody has 2 wolves living inside of them. And one of the wolves represents worry and anxiety and jealousy and fear and negative emotion that you don't want. And the other wolf represents freedom and I don't know, any other positive emotional state you want to find yourself in. Freedom, forgiveness, acceptance, love, understanding, resilience, courage. So one of the wolves really represents everything that represents a negative emotional state. And then the second wolf represents everything that's a positive emotional state. And the boy says, which wolf wins? Because these 2 wolves are fighting, and they're always fighting, and it's a fight to the death. And the boy asks, which wolf will win? And the old man says, whichever one you feed. And that is significant because we often feed the first list that you guys have created, the list of all the fucking bullshit that allows us and makes us feel overwhelmed. That's the list we tend to feed. That's the list we tend to put most of our attention in. We give that most of our attention. We feed that one the most. And the second wolf, or the second list, that is giving you evidence. It's telling you these are the things that need to happen in order for you to feel good, for you to feel the way you want to feel. We don't often feed that list. We don't often feed that wolf. We don't often give it much attention, right? Those are the things that get pushed to the back of our minds. Those are the things that never get done, which is crazy because they're the things that are actually going to really help you, right? However, there's a way in which we do that, right? And we have to do it specifically. So that's when we then move on to the third step, which is prioritization. So we've had exploration, imagination, and now prioritization. So prioritizing the things that cause the feelings you want. That is what we're aiming for. We are aiming for you to prioritize the things that are on that second list. Because at the moment, I can guarantee you're prioritizing the things that make you feel shit, the things that make you feel overwhelmed. And there will be a sense of, yeah, but those are the things that have to happen, but we will come on to that. So let's park that for a minute, right? If you've still got that feeling where it's like, yeah, but that stuff has to happen, right? Those are the things that need to be done. Let's just park that up for a moment. But what we want to do is you just want to look at both of those lists, and essentially we want to start prioritizing list number 2 and stop prioritizing list number 3. Now, there is a very, very good way of doing this, right? I want you to look at the first list, the list that contains everything that is making you feel overwhelmed. And I want you to find the top 3 things on that list that will actually help you move forward and progress towards the feeling that you want to feel, that will allow you to progress towards success, happiness, calmness, whatever it is that you want to feel because it's unique to you. I want you to look at list number 1, and I want you to pick the top 3 things that are on that list that will actually help you progress and move forward towards how you want to feel. Those are the things that you are going to prioritize. Everything else on that list can be forgotten about for now. Completely forgotten about. We're not saying all of the other stuff isn't going to get done and we're just going to ignore it, because there are going to be some things on that list that potentially we do need to do. But by focusing on what the top 3 are, the top 3 that will allow you to move forward and progress, it makes the whole thing a lot more digestible. And that's what we're trying to achieve with this training. We're trying to achieve a more digestible way of going about this business, because when that whole list, you're faced with that entire list, it's not digestible at all. You can't do anything with that. It just creates more overwhelm and the list gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So what I want you to do is I want you to focus on those top 3 things. And I want you to do this the night before, right? So let's imagine for a moment you go through this process today. I want you to find those top 3 things, and I want you the night before, so tonight, to make the decision that those are the 3 things that you're going to do the next day. Because I can guarantee that if you give yourself only those 3 things, you will do them. You will achieve them. Whereas if those 3 things exist on a massive list of another 100 things, none of them get done. Not one of them. Because you're faced with the whole list. And none of them will be done because it's overwhelming. So if we can just chip away and chip away and chip away and chip away at it every single day, then it becomes a lot more digestible. It becomes a lot easier. So this is also a very, very good way of prioritizing your thoughts when you wake up in the morning. Because as we all know, when you're faced with anxiety, you're faced with overwhelm, it tends to play your thoughts. It tends to be the things that we focus on immediately as we wake up in the morning, and you see this whole day ahead of you with this huge list of things to do and this huge list of things that worry you and concern you and get you down and make you feel overwhelmed, and it seems like an impossible task. One of the best ways of dictating how your day is going to go is by dictating what you think about immediately as you wake up. If you have planned to prioritize these 3 things the night before, you go to bed feeling like you can handle tomorrow. Then when you wake up in the morning, you wake up instantly reminded that these three things are the only three things that you need to worry about, because these are the three things that will help you move forward and progress and grow throughout the day. Much easier to handle. So you go to bed feeling better, you wake up feeling better, and you've got a good structure to follow for the rest of that day, right? So that's the best way of prioritizing the things that need to be prioritized. List number 2 of all of these things that will make you feel good. It's good to know that, right? It's good to have that. The biggest bit of advice I can give around that is do them things more often than not, right? We might not be in a position where we can just live our lives doing all of the things that are on list number 2, right? Because there are things on list number 1 that need to be done, right? Or they at least feel like they need to be done. But the stuff that's on list number 2 is fucking gold dust. That is the stuff that will genuinely make you feel good and less overwhelmed and better. So the only thing I'm going to say about that is make a point to do those things more often than not, right? That's all I'm going to say about that. List number 2, make a point to do those things more often than not. List number 1, you pick the top 3 things that will help you progress and move forward. And those are the only things you worry about doing that day. 3 a day, 3 a day, 3 a day, till eventually they're all ticked off the list. The next stage is deletion, right? Now, this is a significant stage and it will make you feel a lot better. It may be difficult, but I promise it will make you feel a lot better. With the 4th category, which is deletion, look at that list, which is list number 1, the list of things that make you feel overwhelmed. You've already picked your top 3 that you know will help you move forward and progress towards growth, progression, and how you want to feel. You want to look at absolutely everything else on that list and be absolutely ruthless in deleting anything and everything that you possibly can from that list. This is stuff that when you look at it, you think, you know what? The more I think about that, the more overwhelmed I get. And actually, do I need to do it? Does it need to be done? Is it an absolute necessity? Is this life or death? Because at the moment, that list, the way it exists right now, nothing's getting done. Nothing will get done because it will remain overwhelming and it will cause you to feel overwhelmed. It will affect your emotions. It will affect your beliefs. It will affect your outlook. Remember what I said at the very beginning. One of the side effects, if you like, of overwhelm is freezing, right? When you know you've got so much stuff that's overwhelming you, you get to the point where you freeze and you don't do any of it because you've got fucking no idea where to begin. And you know what? And I'm sure some of you have experienced this. Sometimes days, weeks, even months can go by where you have not made any progression at all because you've frozen. Now, if there's anything in the back of your mind that thinks, oh yeah, but how can I only focus on 3 things a day? 3 things a day, every day, is going to allow you to progress a lot faster than freezing and doing none of those things a day, every day, right? You might have this massive list and you're like, oh, I'm going to try to get through all of them. Or there's all these things that are worrying you and all these things that make you feel overwhelmed. We need to cut that shit down big time. You've taken a huge step in the right direction by brain dumping it all down on paper. You've taken another huge step in the right direction by understanding, actually, these are the 3 that I need to be focusing on. Now take another huge step by cutting away every single thing on that list that is not an absolute necessity. Get rid of it. Delete it. Delete it. Let's try to get that list down by half. Let's try to get that list down to a quarter of the size that it was before. This is a list of things that you need to do, apparently. These are the things that are worrying you. These are the things that are making you feel overwhelmed. And I can promise you, some of that shit can go, right? Get rid of it. Delete it and never think about it again, because a lot of stuff occupies our mind that isn't an absolute necessity. The final stage of the 5-stage process is delegation. For everything else that is remaining on that list, that is not the top 3 things that you know will allow you to progress and move forward, what can you give away? What can you get help with? What can you delegate to other people? Now, most people are going to find themselves in one of 2 situations at the moment. They're either going to have a house full of people, which is unusual, or they're going to be on their own, right? But there's opportunity in both of those situations. If you're now in a house full of people, you've got more people to help you do the things that you need to do, right? Some of that may work, some of it may not, depending on the age of the people that you're living with and depending on what they've got going on, whether it's school or work or whatever. But the key with this final step is to just look at that list and think, what don't I need to do by myself? That's key, because we are pack animals. We like to do things together. We like to help each other. We don't like doing things alone. It can be overwhelming. So just as the final stage on that, throughout this 5-stage process, look at the list and ask the question, what can I delegate? What can I give to someone else? Or at least, what can I get help with? And even if you're one of these people that are at the moment, you're completely on your own. Again, we live in the world of the internet, Zoom, social media, online communication. There may still be some things that you can get other people to help you with, even though you're not in the same room. This final stage is one where we're just kind of putting the icing on the cake. We're just doing the last finishing touches, the last little bits of dusting. If it can be done, it's a fantastic bonus, right? So let's recap. Stage number 1, exploration. We have fully explored how it is you feel and why it is you feel that way. Stage number 2, imagination. We have also imagined how you want to feel, and we have gained an understanding over what needs to happen in order for you to feel that way. Prioritization. We have made the decision to feed list number 2. Give it more food, give it more love, give it more attention, because it deserves it. It will allow you to feel good, whilst at the same time picking the top 3 things from list number 1 that will help you progress. Stage number 4, deletion. Delete anything and everything you can off of list number 1. Get rid of it if you can get rid of it. Stage number 5, which is a nice extra, delegation. The stuff that remains on that list, if you can give it to someone else, you can delegate it out, do that. Now, there will be parts of this process that work for you. There will be parts that don't work for you. It is unique to you. This works very well for me, but there will, without a doubt, be elements that are useful, right? Even if you haven't listened to all 5 of them and thought, yes, that's perfect, that's exactly what I need, I'm sure there will be elements of at least 1 or 2 of the stages, right? There will be elements of this process that you can now think about and realize that there are ways out of this overwhelm. Can you see now why I said do this first? Because if this just gets added to the list of other shit that needs to be done, it won't be effective. Do this first because you need at least those first 3 stages, at least, where you explore why you're feeling this way, what's causing the feeling, how you want to feel, what will create that, and prioritizing the things that you've got going on. Those need to happen at least, because no matter what you're dealing with, no matter what is causing you to feel overwhelmed, those things will cut away at that and chip away at it, and you'll gain a much greater understanding of how you're feeling, why you're feeling that way, and what needs to happen in order for that to change. If you can also do steps number 4 and 5, delete some stuff, delegate some stuff, it gets a hell of a lot of shit off your plate, right? Now, even for those of you that are in those situations where there's now 5 kids at home, I'm homeschooling, I'm trying to work, I'm trying to do the courses at the same time, just go through this process. Before you do anything else, go through the process. Just 2 final tips, right? 2 final tips to finish this off. Once you've gone through all 5 stages, and I do highly recommend you try to go through all 5 stages, the night before, when you've made the decision what you're going to prioritize for the next day. Also try to create some form of loose timetable for yourself. It doesn't need to be set in stone. It doesn't need, and it certainly shouldn't be something that you find restrictive. It should just act as a little bit of a roadmap for you where you think, right, if I'm doing this tomorrow, I'm going to do it in this order. This is when I'm going to try to do it. And this is the stuff I've got going on. Again, it's so you wake up in the morning feeling more prepared. That's the whole fucking key when it comes to that sort of stuff. It's not to have a timetable that you're restricted by. It's in order to be able to heal the thoughts that you've currently got going on. Because when you feel completely overwhelmed, often you wake up in the morning and your thought process, which of course is the first thing that kicks in, is an absolute fucking mess, right? It's an absolute mess. And that will just set you up off terribly for the rest of the day. And then overwhelm will grow and grow and grow and grow. Giving yourself a loose structure for the next day. And it's all about the next day. Because a lot of successful people, a lot of people that handle overwhelm like a champ, they understand that their day starts the night before. Never forget that. Your day starts the night before. And that is by thinking about the top 3 things that you're going to do the next day and giving yourself a loose structure of when and how you're going to do them. Simply so you can wake up in the morning feeling more prepped. The second tip that I'm going to finish off with, and then we're going to round up this training, is the idea of choice. Never forget, as you go through this process, I want to be able to try to give you something that will allow you to feel empowered as you do this. You have choice. You always have choice. Even in times where it feels like all choice has been taken away from you, it hasn't. When you do something, or when you don't do something, that's a choice. You are making choices all day, every day. That is something that should empower you with the idea of that. We get caught up in this idea of, I need to do this. I need to homeschool the kids. I need to go and do my courses of an evening time. I need to go and make those sales calls. I need to do this. I need to do that. Technically, you don't need to do anything, right? Now, if you chose not to do that stuff, it would result in a life that you more than likely wouldn't like, right? If you don't need to go to work and make money. You don't need to put food on the table. But if you didn't do those things, it would result in a life that you wouldn't be desirable. But never forget, it is not a need. It is a choice. You are currently making the right choices. Even if some of those choices can be difficult, if you can say to yourself that you are making those choices for the greater good of yourself and your family, out of love and protection and anything positive and good that you want, that is a good choice. But it is a choice. And never forget that. No one's got a gun to your head and is making you do these things. You're choosing to do them. Allow that to create empowerment as you move forward through this process. Choose to go through these 5 stages straight after this call. Choose to follow these stages in order to eliminate and handle overwhelm. Choose what you're going to prioritize. Choose what your day looks like tomorrow. Choose these things. Make these decisions because that is in your hands. You have the power to do that. You are empowered enough to do that. Allow that to start to eliminate the overwhelm because all of this stuff is in your hands. It's your choice. It's your decision. No one is making you do it. You want to do it. Deep down, there is an element where you want to do it. And if you don't want to do it and it's not serving you and it's not doing anything good for you and it's making you feel overwhelmed, don't forget step number 4, fucking delete it, right? Get rid of it. And instead use that time to start doing some of the things that are on list number 2.